She has long been a muse, a symbol of strength, power, and stunning beauty. And many artists have paid homage to the figure of Cleopatra over the centuries. In the transformative decade of the 1970s, the image of Cleopatra became a powerful symbol in the beauty ideals of Black women in America. Cleopatra, the last queen of ancient Egypt, had long been associated with power, seduction, and mystique. Though historically of Greek Macedonian descent, Cleopatra's legacy took on a new dimension in the 1970s. Black women began to reclaim her image, imbuing it with their own cultural pride and beauty, making her a symbol of empowerment and Black excellence. The 1970s were a time of redefinition for Black identity. The Black is Beautiful movement, which had begun in the late 1960s, reached its zenith, challenging Eurocentric beauty standards and celebrating African heritage. Cleopatra, despite her non-African roots, became an icon for this movement. Her image, with its associations of royal grandeur and feminine allure, was adopted and transformed into a symbol of Black pride and beauty. Beauty brands quickly capitalized on this cultural shift. Companies like Fashion Fair, founded in 1973 by Eunice W. Johnson, began creating cosmetics specifically for Black women. Their marketing campaigns often featured models draped in luxurious fabrics and adorned with bold, dramatic makeup reminiscent of Cleopatra's iconic look. Thick winged eyeliner, deep, vibrant eyeshadows, and rich, opulent lip colors. These ads, prominently featured in magazines like Ebony and Jet, echoed the visual grandeur associated with Cleopatra, suggesting that every Black woman could channel the queen's regal essence. Another notable brand was Flori Roberts, one of the first cosmetic lines catering exclusively to Black women. The brand's messaging embraced the sensuality and power of Black femininity, with a nod to the mythic allure of Cleopatra. In fashion editorials, Black models were frequently styled with ornate jewelry, elaborate hairstyles, and makeup that evoked the Egyptian queen's legendary aesthetic. These images became touchstones for beauty and style within the Black community, prominently featured in Black lifestyle magazines. Fashion photography further cemented this connection. Legendary photographers like Kwame Braithwaite captured stunning portraits of Black women that drew directly from Cleopatra's imagery, imposing headpieces, intricate braids, and majestic poise. These images didn't just celebrate beauty. They reimagined Cleopatra's story, placing her within an African context that resonated deeply with Black women who were reclaiming their roots and redefining their identities. However, it's important to acknowledge the complexities surrounding Cleopatra's identity. Elizabeth Taylor's portrayal in the 1963 film, though iconic, was controversial because it perpetuated Hollywood's tradition of whitewashing historical figures. Cleopatra's actual heritage as a Macedonian Greek ruler often clashes with her depiction as an African queen. Yet for Black women in the 1970s, Cleopatra transcended her historical roots. She became a vessel for empowerment, a symbol of a royal past that they could embrace and reimagine on their terms. Cleopatra's influence on Black women in the 1970s extended beyond the world of beauty products. It permeated pop culture, music, fashion, and even political expression. As Black women embraced Cleopatra's image, they began to see themselves as queens in their own right, worthy of admiration, respect, and reverence. In music, artists like Diana Ross and Nina Simone incorporated elements of Cleopatra's style into their performances. Ross, in particular, channeled Cleopatra in her fashion choices, donning elaborate headdresses and gowns that echoed the queen's opulent style. These visual cues were more than just fashion statements. They were declarations of pride in Black heritage and identity. Fashion magazines, both mainstream and those targeting Black audiences like Ebony and Jet, began to feature more Black models styled after Cleopatra. These models were depicted as regal, powerful, and unapologetically Black, challenging the notion that beauty was the exclusive domain of white women. This visibility in popular media played a crucial role in shifting societal perceptions, making it clear that Black women could and should be seen as symbols of beauty and sophistication. The influence of Cleopatra also found its way into the burgeoning Afrocentric movement, which sought to reclaim African culture and history as sources of pride and identity. For many Black women, Cleopatra represented a connection to a glorious past, a past that had been erased or minimized by centuries of colonization and oppression. By embracing Cleopatra, they were not only honoring an iconic figure from history, but also reclaiming their place in that history. Perhaps the most profound impact of Cleopatra's influence on Black women in the 1970s was on their self-identity. For centuries, Black women in America have been subjected to stereotypes that sought to diminish their beauty and worth. The dominant culture often portrayed them as undesirable, servile, and subservient. They were rarely represented in media and advertising as autonomous beings. The adoption of Cleopatra as a beauty ideal challenged these negative stereotypes head-on. Modeling themselves after Cleopatra allowed Black women to see themselves as beautiful, powerful, and deserving of admiration. The Queen's image became a mirror in which they could see their potential. It was a form of self-empowerment that resonated on both an individual and collective level. This newfound confidence had tangible effects on how Black women presented themselves in society. The bold makeup and hairstyles inspired by Cleopatra were not just fashion choices, they were acts of defiance against a culture that had long sought to marginalize them. By embracing these styles, Black women were asserting their presence and demanding to be seen and heard. The legacy of Cleopatra and the beauty ideals of Black women extends beyond the 1970s. The influence of this powerful historical figure can still be seen in contemporary beauty trends and in the ongoing efforts to celebrate Black beauty in all its forms. However, there is a growing recognition that turning to icons more firmly rooted in African or Islander histories and cultures could be more empowering and authentic for Black women today. One such figure is Queen Nefertiti, who, unlike Cleopatra, was a queen of Egyptian descent. Known for her striking beauty and powerful presence, Nefertiti was a queen who ruled alongside her husband, Pharaoh Akhenaten, during one of the most prosperous times in Egyptian history. Her image, immortalized in the famous bust, reflects a regal, confident woman who was both a leader and a symbol of cultural sophistication. For Black women, embracing Nefertiti as an icon is not only about celebrating beauty, but also about acknowledging a figure who is intrinsically linked to African heritage. Another figure is Queen Zinga of Ndonga and Matamba, a 17th century warrior queen who resisted Portuguese colonization in what is now Angola. Zinga was a fierce leader who led her people in battle and skillfully negotiated with European powers to protect her kingdom's sovereignty. Zinga's story is one of resilience, strength, and strategic brilliance. By embodying Zinga, Black women can connect with the legacy of resistance against oppression, making her a potent symbol of empowerment and defiance against historical forces that sought to subjugate African peoples. From the Caribbean, Nanny of the Maroons stands as another powerful icon. Nanny was a leader of the Maroons in Jamaica, a community of formerly enslaved Africans who escaped into the mountains and fought for their freedom. She is celebrated for her leadership, spiritual power, and tactical acumen in resisting British colonial forces. Nanny's legacy is one of survival, rebellion, and the preservation of African traditions in the face of immense adversity. For Black women, especially those with Caribbean roots, embodying Nanny represents a connection to a history of fierce independence and cultural preservation. The influence of Cleopatra on Black American women in the 1970s was profound and multifaceted. However, there is a growing recognition that turning now to icons more firmly rooted in African or Islander histories and cultures could be more empowering and authentic for Black women today. Figures like Nefertiti, Zinga, and Nanny offer a sense of pride and empowerment grounded in the rich and diverse histories of Africa and the Caribbean, providing Black women with a legacy of empowerment that is deeply rooted in their true heritage. As strength is redefined as beauty, Black women continue to find inspiration and power in their cultural roots, shaping how they see themselves and how they are perceived by society. We move past the inherent and striking beauty of a Cleopatra into something that embodies an earthier and more monumental strength. Yes, Black is beautiful, but more importantly, Black is strong.